Hello, I'm Diane Shuffler-Warren with CultureWorks today, and I wanted to welcome you to the Artist Opportunity Grant panel meeting. The Artist Opportunity Grant Program empowers Montgomery County, Ohio artists to advance their careers through professional development opportunities and the creation of new works. This program is made possible by funding from the Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, MCACD, and is administered by CultureWorks.
Good morning. I am Jessica Jenkins, the Executive Director of the Montgomery County Arts and Culture District, and I'm so pleased to be with you all this morning. Through the Artist Opportunity Grant, Montgomery County artists can request grants of up to $5,000 to complete projects that take place between January 1st of 2026 and December 31st of 2026. Thanks to the great support of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners, the Arts and Cultural District is able to provide $75,000 in this year's grant cycle. Members of the MCACD board and staff are listening into today's meeting, and so I want to thank them, as well as the county commissioners, for their deep commitment to nourishing, cultivating, and supporting arts and culture for the betterment of our community.
All right, we want to welcome all applicants, especially those of you applying for the first time. We also want to welcome artists who are considering applying in the future and who made a special effort to attend today's public review. I encourage you to contact Ren at cultureworks.org, REN, if you would like to discuss what you witnessed here today. She'd be happy to help you. MCACD and CultureWorks want applicants to do well during the application and review process, and your questions and feedback helps us ensure that we're meeting the community's needs. To those community members, board members, and county representatives in attendance, thank you for your support that you offer the arts in our community.
So in keeping with the Arts and Cultural District and CultureWorks commitment to transparency, we have selected an independent panel of artists, grant writers, and community members that evaluate the applications and that will provide funding recommendations. In an effort to ensure a fair and detail-oriented review, the panel was split into two teams, giving panelists each no more than 17 applications to review. Each team includes artists, arts administrators, and an experienced writer. I want to give a special thank you to our panelists today, who will now take just a few minutes to introduce themselves. We can start with Carol.
Hi, my name's Carol Finley. I am primarily involved in theater and costume design, as well as arts administration.
Timothy?
Hi, I'm Timothy Wells. You can call me Tim. I'm a visual artist, podcaster, teacher, community builder, and I work with communities to do public art.
And Sharon.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sharon Norton. I'm mainly involved in vocal performance, choral. I'm a board president and also a grant writer.
Excellent. Again, thank you all.
Today, Ren, our CultureWorks Director of Grant Making and Impact, will serve as the panel chair. Ren, it's now time for you to introduce yourself and begin the review process. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
My pleasure.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Diane.
Of course.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Ren. I'm the Director of Grant Making and Impact, and I want you to know how happy I am to be here today. This is one of my favorite occasions. Please, all applicants, if you have any questions or concerns during this process, make note of them. Please know that we invite you to contact me at any time after this session. So if you want points of clarity or just have questions about it, we're happy to kind of discuss those with you. So I invite you to take me up on that offer. And I want to thank also Jessica and Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, your partner in crime, Liz, for all of the work you do with MCACD. I know you both are so busy all of the time, but we really appreciate your dedication to the arts, to this application process, and to everything you do for the artists and the arts in our region. So thank you so much for being here this morning and for all you do. We really appreciate it. So with no further ado, I want to open by saying that the purpose of today's panel meeting is to provide panelists with an opportunity to hear each other's perspectives and for artists to hear specific feedback about their applications. Attendees should keep in mind that today's discussions will move quickly. However, panelists have conducted a thorough review and initial scoring of applications over the course of several weeks prior to today's meeting. To ensure that there is sufficient time to discuss all applications, panelists will not address all areas of each application in their comments, but will focus on the primary strengths and areas for improvement, with a goal that applicants are able to improve their grant writing and chances in the future, regardless of today's outcome. For non-applicants who are considering applying in the future, we hope today's review gives you some perspective on the process and an idea of what makes a strong application. CultureWorks offers grant writing workshops, which are announced on our Apply for Funding webpage, and those workshops, along with today's public session, can go a long way in clarifying the grant writing process. Audience members may only observe the meeting and will not be permitted to interact with panelists or to provide any additional information during the review process. The panelists have 3 key goals during today's public meeting. 1, to discuss the application points of strength and areas of improvement for the first time with each other, and to hear alternative points of view for reassessment purposes before making funding recommendations next week. To offer their thoughts on points of strength and areas for improvement for each application, to provide insight into grant application processes, especially for first-time applicants. And also 3rd, to pose questions about applications when faced with a lack of clarity so that applicants have the writing prompts they need should they decide or need to reapply. Prior to the panel meeting, panelists were asked to identify any conflicts of interest with the applications. Panelists do not score or discuss applications from applicants with whom they have a conflict. In such instances, a panelist will be removed from the discussion and placed in the waiting room. CultureWorks has initiated a policy of a panelist being asked to review no more than 15 unless we get 33 instead of 30, at which point they are gifted with 17 applications in an effort to ensure they have enough time to read closely, review applicant responses and revise feedback, and follow through on all linked materials. Panel teams will meet again on Wednesday, November 5th to determine their funding recommendations in a closed session, and all applicants will learn of the panel team's recommendations by the end of Friday, November 7th via email. These recommendations are contingent on approval from Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District. Today's meeting will proceed as follows. First, the panel team will discuss 17 applications, one at a time, in order of a randomly assigned application ID number. The discussion of each application will last up to 10 minutes. At the beginning of each discussion, panelists who have declared a conflict of interest with the applicant will be temporarily removed from the meeting. I will then call on the primary reviewer, who will begin the discussion by presenting the application's major strengths and areas for improvement by application section. Once the primary reviewer has concluded their remarks, I will open the floor to the other panelists to add their comments, insight, thoughts, and to open a discussion of different perspectives. There will be one short break and a longer lunch break during the public session today. Panelists may use these breaks to review their comments if needed and to make additional notes. Applicants, please feel free to stay in the room during this time and to use the time as you need. Once the panel has discussed all applications, the panel will enter a short closed session to discuss next steps, at which time audience members will be asked to leave. Panelists will have a few days to review their comments, consider the feedback provided by their fellow panelists, and to update and submit their scores on the application rubric. Note that the Artist Opportunity Grant Program of Montgomery County does not award partial grants. Applicants selected to receive funding are funded in full, except in cases where specific budget items are found to be ineligible. The panel teams will reconvene in the closed session on November 5th to decide on their funding recommendations, which are then submitted to MCACD for approval. Applicants will receive notice on November 7th. Those who the panel has determined not to receive funding will have the option of scheduling a one-on-one with me to review written feedback from the rubric and to discuss potential revisions for the next application cycle. The grant panel's recommendations for funding are subject to final review and approval by MCACD. Grantees, those who do receive funding, will receive notification of their final funding status by email by the end of November. Grantees will be required to attend an onboarding session with me to review any contingency plans, the grant requirements, any updates to the budget and financial information, and the panel's written feedback on the application. During this meeting, each grantee will also review and complete the grant agreement. Pending any required updates, grant payments will be distributed beginning in January. And with that, I will open this up to the panel for review in 2 minutes. Because we are going to keep to the schedule. So we'll pause here for just a moment. If anybody needs to stretch their legs or grab or heat a drink, please take that time and we will begin.
We need hold music.
We do need hold music. I just thought of that. It is now 10:15. So our first applicant under review is applicant 20830. Tim Wells is our primary reviewer. There's a contingency plan with this applicant. So 20830 will need to choose between the conference or the podcast. That is the contingency plan. They were seen as two opportunities. And this person has already begun working on a revised budget with that under advisement. For now, for the panel, let's go ahead and focus on the application as it's written. But if questions about what I just said come up, we can talk about those toward the end of the 10 minutes. At this time, I open the discussion up to primary reviewer Tim Wells.
Hi, we're reviewing application 20830 with the intent to launch my podcast, which spotlights creative entrepreneurs and cultural change makers by securing professional equipment and attending a podcast summit in Atlanta for training, networking, and industry exposure. There's a strong application, and podcasting is a very hot thing right now. This artist is adding podcasting to their abilities. The first part of the application was heavy on their photography, and there was no linkage between their photography and podcasting. So the application would have been stronger to me if it had been focused in on podcasting, why podcasting, their intended markets, podcasts that they have listened to, and less emphasis on the photography business. The work samples were about the photography. It could have been strengthened by having some audio clips of interviewing their models to start connecting their photography and working with artists into podcasting. The schedule I was a little concerned about, in that they're buying equipment and doing all the podcasting work prior to starting in January, with the conference being in October. And it did seem like a bit cart before the horse. But you said that has been addressed with the contingency. The equipment that they listed in their budget seems very adequate for what they're trying to do. Being a podcaster, I know what's involved in that. That looks like a good set of equipment. Impact on career, obviously expanding people's awareness of art and entrepreneurship, I think is a strong service to the community. And yeah, it's a natural progression, and podcasting is hot right now. So it seems like a nice inclusion or addition of their skill set.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. We'll go ahead and open it up to the floor at this point. Carol or Sharon, if one of you could add your 2 cents, aiming to for coverage, but also things you may have observed that Tim's not touched on yet.
I also thought it was a strong application. I am glad that it's under contingency plan. It seemed like a lot to get accomplished in the time allotted. And with that proviso, I think it's a strong application and good to go.
I'll weigh in for 3 votes on a strong application. I really felt that in reading this, that the artist's statement and the merit of this lies in the articulation of how convicted the artist was. It felt very personal to me and reflective, and those are kind of all the meaty things I like to see in an artist type of proposal. The only thing, and I think this goes hand in hand with what Tim and Carol have said, is I was longing for just a little bit more, for lack of a better word, quantitation of specific indicators of success. You know, what does success look like? How are you measuring that success? So metrics, what's the expected listenership, you know, these number of events and feedback mechanisms, all the things that would lend you to ultimately understand that this very expansive endeavor was manifest into this final product that you envision. And so that was my main takeaway. But I agree, it represented a thoughtful evolution of this artist's creative practice, going from visual to audio, but still keeping on track with the focus that this artist has had in focusing on identity and having people be seen. So I applaud that.
Thank you. That was some good feedback, Sharon, and I love specificity, so I appreciated that.
Yeah, along those lines, a lot of prices of objects in the budget with no supporting quotes or information from providers. I mean, there was nice information about the equipment, but the ticket price, the podcasting for $150, podcasting site when there are a lot of free ones out there. Kind of curious why they're picking that, going that route. And so just more details about the prices they came up with. And you'll be hearing me say that a lot today, so.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think, one of the themes perhaps that we can think through as we move through these applications is helping the applicants with the kind of the timeline and the budget aspect of the applications. I think, especially for early applicants, that tends to be the more challenging section of an application. We love to talk about our art form and our ideas, but then when we have to talk about how it's going to happen, especially in advance, so far in advance for some people, like when you're looking at an opportunity that's not until later in a year, can be challenging. For those of you who are grant writers, do you want to add anything about that before we take a little pause here between applications?
I don't disagree with that. I think, I think doing that, it's not just an exercise. I think it really helps you think through the feasibility of things if you really kind of get down into those kinds of details. Now, you don't want to get so detail like down the rat hole, in other words, but it's definitely a worthwhile thing to do to help you understand, are you going to bite off more than you can chew, especially if you're new to this, and also identify, have you really thought about all the transitional elements going from this stage to this stage to this stage and not get yourself caught short or, on many levels, your own time, your budget, so forth.
Yeah, because in project management, there's the tripod, there's requirements, there's budget, and there's a schedule. And being able to address all three of those, showing that you understand what's involved with why you're doing it, how much it's going to cost, and the schedule you're going to do it with. That's what I'm looking for when I'm writing a grant, when I'm reviewing grants, is do they understand the whole playing field of getting their project done? And that's anything, even in arts, if you're gonna have a performance and you know it's on November 7th, there are things you need to do ahead of time to be ready for that. You can't just show up on the 7th and go, what are we singing? What time are we starting? Yeah.
Backdating. Backdating is one of my favorite words.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Start with the end time.
Okay, let's go ahead and shift to our next applicant, applicant 20805, and our primary reviewer is Carol Finley. Carol, can you start us off with this application?
This project is to choreograph and perform a new dance for a professional company. The strength of this was the description of the collaboration and of the outcome. I'd like to see a more thorough description of what has already been completed, because this project will be done very early in the grant period in February, and how many of the funds requested are only within the grant period? Do any of them predate the grant period? The applicant was strong in detailing personal growth in the final project. I don't have any further questions about that area. The supportive materials that were provided were wonderful. They show the actual project in the preparation phase. There is a clear definition of the expenses present, but I do still want to know whether the full budget requested falls within the grant dates, because the project is already well underway. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Carol. let's go ahead and open this up to the floor. Tim and Sharon, would you like to share your thoughts, please, on strengths and weaknesses or questions that you continue to have about application 20805?
Yeah, I enjoyed reading this this application and the narrative. I thought that the dancers' artistic merit was really well described. It shows that they have such depth in this and authenticity, and also the connection to their experiences, their faith, and all of that. I thought it was very reflective. The one weakness there is that I thought that there was oftentimes a lot of aspirational kind of thinking about this or description, and I was kind of longing for a little bit more specificity regarding this unique choreographic style that this dancer has, and how this is going to translate into a more distinctive, or if it will, artistic product. Is it, doing this, is it going to result in this transformational thing, or is it just, not that this is wrong, but just really kind of growing the depth of the style that is already there. I don't know if that makes sense, but I felt that the statement of the opportunity was very rich and reflective, but I felt like there was places where it got a little diffuse. It could be more concise, kind of getting down to the brass tacks. I know it's art, but the strategy focused about how the opportunity is going to advance this career and the community impact. Although I do love, having said that, the fact that this is coming back to Dayton, and that's going to be a benefit to the community. And I just really love that it showed this dual focus of self-development and community collaboration, which I thought was right on. So I felt that the administrative capacity, like Carol said, was very strong. I just would, my lingering question at the end was, because of a lot of this work is so early on, is there a plan in this artist's mind for then what's next? The sustainability of this. It can't just be, I'm going to do this and it's going to be wonderful. Then what goes on after that? And are you planning for the future? Because I think it's great. Something like this just shouldn't be a once and done kind of thing. So that was my thought.
I'm glad you said that, Carol.
Yep.
Yeah. Sharon, sorry. I'm looking at Sharon and I saw Carol's name.
I don't mind.
I apologize.
I want to be Carol.
You're wearing the same. We all have short hair and glasses. Anyway,
That's right.
Except for Tim.
Here, does this help? No, I can't see it all now. So yeah.
Tim,
yeah, I agree with everything has been said already. I do have the same questions about the things that have happened already in 2025, getting ready for 2026. I do like that it is including visual artists as well as the performing artists into it. I did have a little blink in my head about that the performance is outside of Montgomery County, but I do appreciate that all the artists and skills are coming back to Montgomery County and Dayton. So like was pointed out, I would like to have had more what the takeaways will be from the experience to move forward with supporting the community.
Mm-hmm.
That would help tie it all together for me in my mind.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Unless anybody has any other comments, why don't you take a little time here to kind of make your notes on this one, and we can come back around to it. For me, I think the feedback that I really appreciated, Sharon, is what you said about thinking about the opportunity as something that continues to build beyond the project itself. Right. And what the ultimate takeaways is going to be for you, or for the artist, or for the collaboration.
Yeah.
Carol, did you have any last thoughts about it? Are you looking at your papers or at the camera and thinking?
I'm just staring into space at the moment
Okay.
and processing what everybody else has said.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to pause for a little bit. Our next applicant, 20810, is scheduled to begin in 4 minutes. So we'll pause for a little bit here.
Ren, are you getting all the categories covered in this? Since we're going through these faster than you were expecting, are you getting?
You are going through them faster than I expected, especially because I know some of you are talkers.
Did we skip 20791?
That's next.
That's
after,
next.
yeah, that's next
That's
one.
not what I heard.
Oh, I said 20810, didn't I? Yeah, sorry. 20791 is next, correct.
Yeah. Well, we're just demonstrating how less is sometimes more, right? So.
Do you remember what the timeout is on the application review app or the website of inactivity? Is it like 10 minutes of inactivity, or do we know?
I thought it was like 9. Oh, maybe I don't know.
Because it updates every 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that I knew, but I don't know about the timeout.
Because I had that up on one of my screens. I want to make sure that I don't have to come back into it a bunch of times.
Okay, let's go ahead and start just a little early for the next application, 20791. And our primary reviewer is Sharon Norton. Sharon, can you go ahead and get us started?
Great. So as you just said, this is application 20791. The opportunity here is funds will support production costs for The Poet and His Song, a collaboration with WDPR, Discover Classical, to broadcast musical settings of text by Paul Lawrence Dunbar, including composer interviews and poetic recitations supported by a companion website. So it is the opportunity is to create and complete show new work. I really enjoyed reading this application. I thought it was very strong. It's clear to me that the artist possesses just a depth of mastery and level scholarly understanding, appreciation around the work of our son of Dayton, Paul Lawrence Dunbar. And this has just been a thread, it seems like, through her career to wanting to promote the works far and wide. And I think that to this point, she's done so very successfully. I think in reading the whole artistic merit, it was helpful to understand her accomplishments. However, I long for just a little bit more about her personal voice and her motivations or creative philosophy. Why does this matter to her a little bit more? I mean, she touched on that, but and maybe it's just me, I just wanted a little bit more on that. It read more like a CV to me, and I wanted a little bit more of that, I don't know, that soul in it. I think she's effectively, in terms of the quality of this proposal, she highlighted just the breadth of what she was going to do, and also the enthusiasm of the collaboration, which I thought was very strong. She's got 14 composers, multiple local voices, has strong community professional support, and I just think that that all demonstrates this project's credibility and inclusivity. I think this is also a progression to the next logical expansion of her depth in creating awareness of the work of Paul Lawrence Dunbar. And I also think it's just adds even more credibility and feasibility that she's working with experts at WDPR to expand and promote this. It's not some, Josh, I hope we're going to throw some spaghetti against the wall and it works. I've never worked with these people before. We've got some experience, heavy hitters, to make this happen and be successful. I think the community impact through on top of that, then going back to WDPR as a collaborator, at, providing this artistic output, this product through free public radio is so meaningful to the locale that we have here. Given too, like I said, that Paul Lawrence Dunbar is a son of Dayton. It's like, when the plan comes together like that, it's just so great that that could happen. And the fact too that WDPR offers web-based broadcast, it can just, sling this further and farther, which I think is one of the planned outcomes of this. I wanted to know a little bit more if there was any specifics around, community outcomes or engagement, more than just the radio, maybe how listeners are going to be further, how they'll be affected. Some thought about what the hope was for that. The administrative, I thought, was very strong, very clearly outlined. Maybe just a little bit more. We're going to hear this probably a lot with all these reviews, details about, how are you going to get all these administrative processes done? Is there some sort of, is there a management strategy? Are you doing this all yourself? I mean, scheduling, coordinating, 15 to 18 interviews. What's the oversight to that? Is that going to be on you to do, or are you going to get other people to help you? Just a little bit more about that. I'm sure I would think that this is all planned, but that's a lot. And I'm just going to throw that out there. You got to be thinking about that. So I think it's a very strong project. I thought it was well organized, defined collaborators. It seems like everything's in place. And I think that the inclusion of a diverse range of composers and local actors adds the cultural richness to this application. So I appreciated reading it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Definitely touched on every section, so appreciated.
The talker in me.
Let's go ahead and open it up to the floor at this point. Carol and Tim, please offer your thoughts on this application, as specific as possible, but any questions you had about it or anything like that. Strengths, areas for improvement.
I'll ditto everything Sharon said. My one question is that there's not a whole lot of delineation about how this project differs from the hundreds of projects on Paul Lawrence Dunbar that have already been completed, especially since we're past an anniversary year where lots of things happened in the Dayton area regarding Paul Lawrence Dunbar. Other than that, this is a strong application. It's something I'd want to go see. I just thought that a little bit more thought into how this differs from other things that have already been done would have been nice in the somewhere in these materials.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a good note.
Mm-hmm.
And
for grant writing generally, I think that's a good note.
My quick two notes are, and I'm not sure if permissions or copyrights need to be secured for recording and performing the texts. And there was talking about using the facilities. I don't know if the radio station charges to use their space to do the recordings. And I would like to see some information about how they plan on marketing it outside of it just being on the radio station. There's a website, but I would like to see some information about how they plan on marketing and making it people aware of the existence of this project. Because it sounds like something that people would be interested in hearing and participating in. So I'd like to have seen something in this schedule of planning about that.
Okay. Any final thoughts to wrap up the discussion of applicant 20791?
I was just one more thing is, this is kind of my own education. And I think of Paul Lawrence Dunbar and, I'm just been very focused on, he's from Dayton. What a great thing for Dayton. We celebrate this in Dayton. Like you said, Carol, we've had anniversary celebrations that took multiple forms, but then it really was like, oh my goodness, people in other countries, and all this, how his poetry has just it's not just about Dayton. It's a worldwide thing, and it really kind of is like, of course, and there's been just so many people, affected or moved with his poetry, and it was just a reminder for me that this is a universal thing. It's a really big thing, and maybe that's the opportunity in this here too, is that maybe there's been less of that. It has been very community centric, and maybe that's the opportunity here with all the broadcasts, is to really push it out there, because clearly the artist took some time to talk about all the stuff that she's been doing in other places outside the walls of Ohio. So yeah.
Good. Okay. I know that the next artist is in the room, so we will go ahead and get started with applicant 20810 at this time, a little ahead of schedule. Carol Finley, you are the primary reviewer. Could you please get us started with 20810?
All right, this project is to create a new jazz album in New York City with world-class collaborators and original compositions. There's quite a bit of detail in the project description and with potential collaborators. I liked that about it. My question is, do you have contact information for potential collaborators? They seemed like a good list of them. And are those prospects probable for a yes in collaboration? That wasn't well delineated. The project addressed professional growth and audience potential, increased audience potential. The supporting materials included lots of details about the needed materials. The details of the budget seem to cover all or most of the expenses needed. In general, I thought this was a really strong application.
Thank you, Carol. Let's go ahead and open it up to the floor. Tim and Sharon, your thoughts on the application for 20810, strengths, areas for improvement, questions you still had about the application.
My cat join us here too, so sorry. What everyone wants to say first thing in the morning, my cats are in. So with that, let me go ahead and maybe to go away. I agree with you, Carol. I thought this was a very strong proposal. I really felt that the impact on the career was very convincing, linking this project to the artist's long-term career development. It just seemed like this was exactly the next step. It was a very, what I call a coherent arc from past the sabbatical breakthroughs to concrete future albums and this or outcomes rather than the album release collaborations. I absolutely want to underscore what you said. Looking at administrative capacity, I say, while the statement is strong on budgeting and logistics, it lacks any mention of administrative systems, how the mechanisms for how you're going to manage all these contracts, the payments, the scheduling, the communication, the studio. Like, it's just like, whoa, you must need like somebody else to do that, or is that just in the wheelhouse of this artist? Maybe, but I just want to kind of have that little bit of a assurance. The only thing I would say about the on the community impact, I did feel it was great how it connected his work to multiple layers of public benefit, cultural, educational, and so forth, to not only Dayton but the Midwest, and bringing New York to us, fostering these mentorships. Thought that was all great. I thought pretty much like what I'm probably doing right now. It rambled a little bit. It was kind of diffuse in his attempt to just talk about so many dimensions of this, and so I think tightening that focus to the most distinctive and measurable form of the public impact would have been, just make this a little bit stronger. It wasn't a condemnation by any sense, but I just want to say I think that would have maybe tightened it up a little bit. So don't use me as an example of tightening it.
I agree. It's a strong application. I do appreciate that it is a continuation and expansion of the artist's current path and trajectory. I would have appreciated some letters of support from musicians or quotes. This goes back to details in the budget. They've identified line items for the cost for drummers, percussionists, all these things, but there were no quotes or communications from artists that they were planning on hiring. The only communication that we saw with the studio was an email from the studio saying these are our prices. I'd like to see some more confirmation that the studio would be available when the artist is looking to do it. And what resources they're going to need from the studio and what resources the studio provides them in the whole recording. That just be on my side, since I'm not in that sector, that those things might just be common and known within the performers that I am just not aware of. But as an outsider reading it, those were the things that came to my mind.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts on this application before I open it up for a bit of a discussion about grant writing generally? Okay,
it.
so we're good on application 20810. So tracking sort of common issues that and words that are coming up from more of the general grant writing perspective, and they really kind of came to a head with this last application with 20810, where there was actually a reference to measurable outcomes. And then the other important note, I think, is partly what you said, Tim, about how when you're outside of someone's art form, even when you're an artist, right, and you understand the creative process, what's universal about it, but not enough about the steps and the craft itself to appreciate information that they may not be offering, right? Like you don't know the answers to the process it takes or the steps they need to take to get something done. And that's what I'm talking about with the business of procedure, right? Kind of came up as well. So those were two things that I think were really important takeaways for this first portion of today's public review. And I kind of like to open it up to see what you three gravitate toward. We don't necessarily need to address both of those things, but if you have thoughts about either just that term, measurable income, measurable outcomes, and how to talk about that in a way for our applicants to help that make sense to them. And then also just kind of this question of not everybody knows what you do. Even if they know your art form, they've seen it, they don't know what you do. And Carol, and Sharon, as performers, right, I think that's especially kind of like works for us because we have a backstage and an onstage sort of a rehearsal process, and nobody really appreciates like the amount of work that goes into those kind of collaborative performance art forms. I always think of that and then apply it to every art form. So I'm going to stop talking now because now I'm rambling, Sharon, and let you all have some time here.
One of the
talk.
things that I thought was missing in a lot of these grant applications is that there is a project outcome, but not a way to measure the success of that outcome. So maybe we were going to finish with a performance, but how do you measure success? How many people come? Is there a way to measure that success in any way? You know, in theater, my theater does 3 weekends of a performance, and one of the measures of success is whether word of mouth made the last weekend, you know, standing room only. Or, you know, there are other measures. People who don't like a show leave their programs on the ground. If there are lots of programs on the ground, we know that it was not a successful show. You know, there are measures that we use for success. It's not just putting a play on the stage and you know, everything that happens before you get that play on the stage, but how do you know that this was something that you'd want to do a similar project in? You know, is this a genre that people liked, or is this, you know, I don't know. How do you measure whether what you did was a success? I didn't see a lot of that in any of
Yeah,
the grants, actually.
even Ren, with you, as you complete this grant opportunity, you're going to review how successful it was. So if you're having a performance, what is the in corporate speak postmortem? What is what conversation are you going to have afterwards to say what worked, what didn't work, what are we going to do better or different next time? What worked? And so I think we've touched upon that on several of these. There is no you got to the finish line, but what happens when you get there and after? You know, how do you do your victory lap, and how do you keep training after that?
Yeah.
But like with the podcast, to go ahead and say, I want Joe Rogan numbers after a first year, that is unrealistic. You're not going to get 10 million viewers or listeners to your podcast in the first year, most likely. Maybe a couple hundred would be a target number. But again, it's that research of what does success look like in the field I'm working in.
Yeah. I think there, especially the first time maybe you're writing a grant or something like this, you're thinking that the success is meeting your timeline. And that is important. But as everyone has said here, it's like, so what does success look like? And I do think that having, you know, like you said, Carol, what are your anticipated ticket sales? Okay, I'm not an expert on podcasts, but I would think that there are metrics that you can track. Might be a little bit harder, for example, on the application for Paul Lawrence Dunbar. We're talking about radio. You really don't know who's tuning in. Now, you can also see who's tuning in on the web. But those are the kinds of things that I think you need to have in there to understand whether this was successful, or in the case where you're using multiple platforms to disseminate something, which ones were more successful, so that when you do take this to the next level, which I hope all of these do, and it's not just a once and done, that you can put your money and your resources and your time into the things that have the greatest impact. Otherwise, you know, you're really kind of wasting valuable resources by, you know, going out this way where you yielded, you know, you cast your net and got nothing, to over here where you're really, you know, moving your audience. It can't just be art for art's sake. It just can't be. There is a business side of this that you have to consider. And I don't mean that to be mean or scary, but, you know, there's some sausage making that goes on with everything that we do. And at the end of the day, there should always be a little bit of a kernel of business in this, so that you can be successful, so that you can do the next thing. So.
Okay.
And
So,
sorry, go ahead.
well, I have a question, if I may pose it.
Go.
Okay. Did the application ask them about measurable outcomes?
No.
Okay. There we go. So that's the takeaway for me. Okay. And so keep that in mind, please, as you're, you know, commenting and scoring. I mean, this is why I like to have the public reviews in this fashion, where it's more dialogical. And there are grant writers out there who are experienced enough to know to address measurable outcomes no matter what, but particularly for the Artist Opportunity Grant, when you're getting a lot of first-time applicants, that really needs to be explicitly stated and explained, I think, in the application. So that's a revision for the application next year.
Yeah, and maybe the place for that, the logical place to put that, or that element, is under the public benefit and the community impact.
I think so too.
I think that's where it would go. You know, you're going to do all these things. This is what I hope for, and here's how I'm going to measure it. So
right.
But it's not pointed out specifically.
Right.
And we always
Yeah.
encourage applicants to answer the question that's on the page.
Right, right.
And they
And
did. In these cases, they did answer that question that was on the application.
Right.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that, but if you have asked for what is the audience participation, or what do you hope to gain in broadening your audience, or, you know, you've asked that question and you get some vague details about, yeah, I want more people to see this. But there's no way to measure the outcome. I mean, I don't know. I understand that success, that that what you hope to do, and the grant moves toward that. And you can say we hit this audience at the end, but maybe that's all it is. I want this audience. I didn't see any of that. I mean, not numbers or not, but you know, if you have an ethnic something or other project and you want people to see it to broaden their application, or broaden people's understanding, how do you get there? And I didn't, you know, where do you advertise? How do you look at the audience who attends? Did they meet that criterion, whether it's in basic numbers or global statements or something? And I know it's not in the grant, but that was the one thing in all of these grants that I didn't see.
I like the way you worded that, actually, because I think what happens a lot of times with the public benefit aspect of it is I think sometimes there's some trouble with that question. And I agree that this is where we should be addressing measurable outcomes. So to think about the public outcome or the public impact as part of what makes the creative process meaningful and what that looks like, that is the power of art, that it's experiential and it has to move beyond the artist's experience into an audience to really make that impact. And that has to be where the measurable outcome, I think, is kind of taking place. The professionalization applications that we get, I think, are different in that way. But I think when you're talking about a project, this has been helpful to me to hear.
So
The other thing that, I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead. I'll stop.
because you've taught in college classes, I've taught college classes, and I was always encouraging them to ask what if. And I love these applications. You're giving the artist a chance to say, what if I did this? So we're giving them an opportunity to say, what if I want to do a podcast? What if I want to choreograph and do it? So there's a lot of good what ifing going on. And I think that needs to be encouraged. And I always encourage my students to fail magnificently. You learn more from failure than success. So having them come up with a set of metrics for what success means is fine, but it's completely also fine to completely miss that.
Yes.
Right.
As long as there's thought about what didn't work.
Yes.
Right? Or if you choose to say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to publicize this, the question you need to ask yourself is, why did I choose these things versus a whole host of the other things? And I think that will lead you to, are these the best choices? Are these the ones that are going to be the most successful? So it's a what if and why, kind of thing. So
yeah, I have some thoughts, but we have reached our limit. And we are going to take a 15-minute break here, and then we will return. Panelists, please do not leave the room, but mute and turn off your cameras. And I will call you back in 15, and we will continue. Thank you, everybody who's attending and being here right now. We'll be back in 15 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, we have officially reached 11:15 a.m. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Welcome back, everybody, from our short break. Next up are 6 applications, and we'll take each in turn. Our first application is 20802, and our primary reviewer for this application is Tim Wells.
Howdy. All right. So 20802. Let me bring up the statement real quick. There's my computers. Okay. I'll read it off the paper. Podcast launch for the community kickoff event that highlights the importance of preserving family history and debuts the first episode inviting families to begin sharing their own stories. I found this to be a very strong and compelling application. There's a long history of the applicant already owning a storytelling business, so they know the importance of storytelling, how to do it, how to get people together, how to get those stories out from people and to people. In the public benefit, the statement, my primary audience is African American families, especially those who have struggled with silence, trauma, or generational gaps, is very strong statement. And to know who your intended audience is with your podcast will help with everything. So no, that's the strong history, strong awareness of who they are, very detailed with the budget and providing quotes and information about who they are bringing in to help them complete this project and how much this cost is going to be. There's a stipend for the families being interviewed is also greatly appreciated. So it's spreading the money across everyone involved in the project, which I just found this a very strong, compelling story and application. And in podcast world, having an evergreen podcast, which is one that's not about a specific current topic, which means it can be listened to at any point in time and still be relevant, is a strong and powerful thing. And that's what it sounds like this podcast is trying to do, is build something that is an ongoing, that will be listenable and of interest and importance to people beyond a 2-month period. So I really like this one.
Thank you, Tim. Carol, you're muted. Can you unmute? Yeah, I saw you chiming in here.
I liked this project as well, and ditto what he said. The one question, and it was a big question that I had, was, is there a criteria for choosing these families? Are there specific topics you want to cover? Or is this your aunt and uncle? Or somebody down the street? I couldn't tell from the application, but I really liked the project. I just wish I had more information about criterion for choosing the histories that you're seeking.
that was pretty much my comment as well as, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting, but I just was kind of curious, you know, the first episode, um, would tell me there's going to be more episodes. So is there kind of like this longitudinal plan for what it would be? And then how do you pick the people that you're going to have? I think it's very strong and very interesting. And I'm so glad that this project is being formed, because I really do think it has such deep community benefit and inclusion. And I think that those are at the heartbeat of this. You know, we just talked about it at the before the break, but I just really wanted to see more concrete evidence of reach and sustainability for this. Everything you said, Tim, I had not heard that term before, but this idea of something being evergreen, you can walk into it at any time and it's relevant and all of that. But back to these metrics, the data, the scientist in me, you know, expected attendance, you know, the partnerships, the plans for audience engagement after the launch, how you're going to track it. These are really, you know, this is one that you really do want it to live and breathe and be sustained. And so what's kind of the thought behind that? I think, I guess the other thing I'll just say is that this artist clearly has experience in this. I think this is such a great natural progression, and it's deeply grounded in the experience of this artist. It fuses together storytelling, healing, cultural preservation, just all the things I think the society needs right now. So I just felt it was, you know, uber relevant. So thank you for submitting it.
There was one minor administrative thing, is all the dates were 2025.
Yeah.
And I just assumed they really were 2026, but it would be nice to clarify in any paperwork moving forward that having those dates modified. But
Yeah.
That's my favorite trick, to do stuff like that, especially with the new year coming. Who knows what date I'll put down, so. It takes me usually half a year to figure that out, right?
Any other comments about this one? Tim, you're the podcaster in the group. So Carol and Sharon, when you were reading this, did you feel like you had the detail you needed about the craft to kind of really appreciate the logistics of the project?
Well, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because that's a little different from, you know, the measurable outcome, but, you know, could you imagine, were you able to see that?
Yeah, for me, yes. And I think what really helped me were the artistic samples that were provided. And I'll just say that as an overlay to everything. And it's something I will share as a grant writer, and having to provide those. It's really made me think now about how important those are. Not that I was dismissive about them, but they really help, especially if you're, you know, you got to kind of go into this knowing that maybe the people that are reviewing this aren't all Tim Wells, you know. I mean, we all can't be Tim, but so you have
you
to.
don't want to be.
So having, you know, those visual examples, and that was so helpful to me to make me believe that, you know, first of all, or see what this artist can do, how it's a progression, and really the impact that this could have. I'm not completely savvy on all the details it takes to pull off something like this, like Tim does, and that's why the details are important. You got to explain it a little bit. So you have to kind of always imagine there's somebody sitting in the room that, you know, is kind of in this sphere. You're not just picking everybody, you know, just off the street. We have some experience in this area, but those details, and then I think these visual examples were very helpful to me. I don't know if you felt that way, Carol.
I did. I know enough about video production and all the steps that go into it to appreciate the time that it takes to edit audio and visual. So I felt like I had enough information about timelines and what goes in, what has to happen before you sit down and record stuff, and then what has to happen after you've sat down and recorded stuff to get a final outcome.
Right.
So I felt like I had enough information to, personally, and from the information provided in the grant, to know whether this was a viable project.
So that does bring up, in their request, they are outsourcing the recording and editing, which is fine. And they're paying to use a studio, again, which is fine. But that is a continuing cost as that series moves forward. And I'm not sure that was addressed in the finances. I don't remember the budget off the top of my head. If that was budgeted for one episode for $200 for the recording and editing and the studio time, or if that was carried out forward through the anticipated number of episodes. And I don't have the budget. I mean, I could pull the budget up and look at it. But if this is something they want to continue doing, it would be nice if this artist either found somebody who knows those skills they can help train, or picked up those skills themselves. Because this is such a powerful project that we all think should move forward. And I think those stories could go on for forever, and having the ability to do that themselves would be beneficial to them versus having to outsource it every time,
Mhm.
or build a
Okay.
team to do it.
Right. Okay.
Because
Thank
the
you.
community is full of volunteers. I'm sure you could find people to help you do those things.
Thank you. That takes us to the end of our discussion for application 20802. And thanks, Tim, for serving as our primary and our closer on that one. We'll go ahead and open up the discussion for application 20816. And Sharon, you're our primary reviewer for this application. Could you please get us started on that discussion?
Absolutely. So again, this is application 20816. The opportunity drawn together, the name of this artistic piece is a collaborative recital and recording project uniting soprano Andrea Chenoweth-Wells, mezzo-soprano Ryo Kyung Kim, and pianist Ji Hyung Wak. Oh, I'm so sorry if I didn't do that right. I probably didn't. To highlight underperformed works by women composers and amplify women's voices through music dialogue and community engagement. Boy, I tell you what, I loved this proposal. It hit on every one of my cylinders. It was just very well written and very well conceptualized. I thought that the artist did a great job of compellingly communicating this cohesive artistic vision, uniting this performance with directing and the intimacy work that she does into the single philosophy that's centered on this collaboration, community connection, and all of that. I just thought it was just so wonderfully multidimensional and logical. It wasn't just like this diffuse mess. It all just kind of fit together into one, beautiful piece. And it also then helped me see better how this artist, just her versatility, and then her ability to grow into this next step. I felt that connecting her own artist values was evident in this, amplifying women's voices, this collaboration, audience engagement, which I thought was a really cool part of this. It just demonstrated the next level of leadership and originality, and I just felt that it was just almost like turnkey for funding. As somebody who's looking at, as a grant writer, I think that one thing in the proposed opportunity, I think expanding on how this opportunity will sustainably advance your professional trajectory would make this proposal even more compelling. I just longed to hear a little bit more about that. I also appreciated the transition, to taking these professional outcomes, recording, statewide reach, national visibility. I think maybe and then drilling down on one of those could have been an opportunity. Like, tell me a little bit more about that expanded visibility. So everything we said about putting a little bit more meat on the bones as far as your KPIs, if you will, your key performance indicators. I think I also, in the public benefit, I thought this was one of the strongest ones I read of why this project matters to the community and to the art world. I thought that it did it better than many of the ones that I read. In that it's highlighting women composers, this interdisciplinary collaboration, the need for it, to be accessible, to provide an educational experience, to enrich the culture. And I just thought that the level of inclusivity was off the charts on this. And I thought that the financial plan was very logical. It was well articulated. It justified all the expenses. It demonstrated to me that this artist has an understanding of what it takes to do a project like this. The only thing, and I've said this before, is like, are you going to do this on your own, or is there some system that you're going to use to administrate this? It's just a lot. I mean, I know what goes into something like this on some level. I mean, this is even more than what I am used to myself and have personal involvement in, but just, how are you going to schedule, coordinate, and do all of this for success? But all in all, I thought it was a very well conceived project, has all the elements of success. It's artistically compelling, well organized, and then it's just emotionally and soulfully grounded. I really appreciated it. So thank you for submitting it.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's go ahead and open this discussion up to Tim and Carol for anything you want to add, questions you had, other strengths or areas for improvement that you saw in this application, number 20816.
I also thought this was a strong project. I am personally wildly enthusiastic about academics and performers who are willing to increase their knowledge of production aspects and go from conception to final project. That was a really strong component for me.
Okay.
The only I agree with everything said. It's a very strong, well composed, complete application. I was a little confused on the schedule and the actual product that's being delivered, because there's a public performance in March, but then there's recorded performance in June. And I was kind of confused as what the final product is going to be of this project. Is it the recording of the public performance, or is the public performance just a chance for the communities to see the artwork, and then the one in June is a studio recording so that it can be recorded and shown in perpetuity? And that was, I would have liked a little more clarification on the sequencing and what the final product is of their schedule.
Any other thoughts or questions about 20816 or response to Tim?
And one more was the again, not being in this art form, do need to take into account copyright and performance rights of the music and this being used.
My experience with that, Tim, is that it will, and those are details that need to be attended to. The one thing I failed to mention that I liked, and just another thing I liked about this, is this whole idea of choosing International Women's Day as a premiere, which also kind of maybe answers your question. I kind of saw this as definitely having a live performance, and then also this recorded bit as well, because we have this, not to say that you couldn't do it with just a recording, but this moderated panel and this collaboration, I think in a live sense. But I have to go back. You've made me think now. I want to go back and read that. I had the sense that it was kind of all encompassing on both of those fronts. So that I'll go back and read it.
And I just might not have picked up on that going through the text. So it's possible that those details are in there, and I just wasn't picking up on them.
Okay. Mhm.
All right. We're good with this one at this point. Any closing thoughts for it, or are we ready to transition? Maybe I'll give you a moment here, just kind of write down your thoughts, reminders to yourself, and then we'll get started with our next application. So just take a minute here to kind of regroup a little bit, everybody. Okay, let's go ahead and begin then. Applicant 20788, and Carol Finley, you are our primary reviewer. If you could please start us off with a discussion of 20788.
This project is a creation of a multimedia, multi-sensory immersive experience that is better articulated than I just did. There are very clear goal statements. Having seen the supporting information, the videos that were sent, I'm wondering how different this multisensory project is from what this artist currently produces, because they're pretty multisensory. But then again, I mean, he was very clear in stating what he wants to do. The project does increase the artist's audience and number of performances in the area, which are part of his goal statement. The supportive materials provided a good description of the services needed for what he wants to accomplish. There are details of fund use. In part, included in the downloads that came with the information. I would like to see completion of the Excel spreadsheet. He had a lot of documented expenses, but not the Excel spreadsheet. Some of the expenses seem to have already been spent and were not in the project year. So I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear on what the breakdown was and how much of it is future expense and how much of it has already been expended. Overall, the project is strong. It has very clear descriptions of what the outcomes are, but it was missing some things in the expense sheet area to me.
So Carol, are you recommending a budget contingency for this one then? It sounds like.
I think so. Because some of those seem to be receipts for things that had already been paid out, and some of them were future expenses, and I don't know. I can't tell which is which.
Right.
Yeah. I had the same comment as well on the administrative capacity section. It outlines these specific categories for funding, but I'd like to see more specifics. It's broad, doesn't include some of the dollar amounts, the breakdowns, how much is going to this or that. And so it was really hard for me to get a full handle on the feasibility. And the phrases like lasting impact and elevating are great words. They're very aspirational, but they're not as tangible. So that tangibility aspect of it, I just want to say that I felt like it's a very interesting project. I think its strongest asset is this multi-sensory nature of it. You're taking hip hop and choreography and live instrumentation and multimedia visuals and storytelling, which it really is elevating where this artist has been to this next level, and really creating that a more of a strong cultural force in the community. But with that broader community engagement and collaboration, it comes all the logistical complexity, uh, coordinating rehearsals, these live arrangements, multimedia production, galleries, the whole 9 yards. And I just like, you got to have some detail around that. It's a lot. It's wonderful in concept, but you got to consider um, all the moving parts and make sure you got those managed. So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. But I like the project. I just I want to see it be successful, but I'm hoping that they put some thought into that, and I can't quite gauge that completely from the application.
Kim?
Complete agreement with everything that's been said. I love the what if, as we talked about earlier in our discussions. We've asked artists to say, what if we had up to $5,000 to give you, and this artist came with a great what if, but it does seem to be missing a lot of the details of how that's going to be done. I'm sure that given their experience, it'll work, but if you're asking for money from a group, they're going to want some type of plan and understanding that you can pull it off, what's involved. And given that this artist already does this type of thing and they just want to elevate it, that's great, and I'm sure they can pull it off, but I need more understanding of the details. What are some venues they've approached that have said we're interested in this? Some communications with dancers, with their whole, what is their big picture and how they see this, what does the venue look like and how they can pull it off. And like you said, there's rehearsal costs and all these things that were just not detailed out in there. So I love the
Carol,
stuff, but the execution, I have some questions on.
Carol, do you feel like Sharon and Timothy are kind of gelling with your original statement on this application for 20788?
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's kind of where I was. I tend to be more succinct.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm just making sure it all
Yeah, no, I
connects for
think we're on
you.
the same page.
Okay. So I want to pause for just a minute too, because Tim, you hit on a thing that I'd like to remind everybody in the room about, which is that the panel really has a responsibility to the application and the artist and doing their due diligence on that front. And helping the applicant receive the funds that they're searching for so that they can have the opportunity that they're hoping for, whether that's this year or next grant cycle. That's the job of the panel. But there is also this other job that you were talking about, which is that these are public funds, right? And so your other responsibility is to protecting the public funds, right? And to ensuring that they're being used toward a project that you feel confident will come into fruition. And that's why the business, the timeline, the budget sections of a grant application are so important. And for artists, I think coming into grant writing at the beginning, to be confronted with those components of an application, I think for a lot of us can feel like it's outside of your wheelhouse, and that's the struggle for, I think, a lot of artists when they begin grant writing. And I don't want to, I know it's wrong to generalize in that way. I'm speaking more from my own experience. Perhaps some of you have not, because you're in arts administration, didn't necessarily have that experience. But for those of us who are artists first, and not really in arts administration, right? Those are the sections of the grant that you're just kind of like, why? we pay as we go. kind of a thing. And I think to make that clear for every applicant who's in the room right now, future, current, and past, that's why those sections are so important. These funds come from your neighbors. And so part of the job of the panel is also to ensure that those funds are going to be used the way you're saying they're going to be used. And the only way they can really, feel confident that in that is if they have the evidence of that. And so when there are these questions about the budget or the business side or the timeline or the budget narrative and the budget form, the spreadsheet don't match up, you're kind of leaving a lot of questions around that way. And you can get the contingency, but it's better to have as much of that fleshed out as possible from the beginning with your application. So thanks for that reminder, Tim. I just wanted to kind of pause there and take that moment. With that note, let's go ahead and move on to our next application, 20832. And our primary reviewer for this application is Sharon. Sharon, can you go ahead and get us started off, please?
I will. So again, this is application 20832. The opportunity, the artist stated that she seeks to create an original series of mixed media sculptures with a focus on magnetic and clay bodies, exhibiting my work locally and inviting the public to delve into the electromagnetic power that is emitted from each of us as human beings. I thought it was very interesting. I love this project.
Did the scientist in you get goosebumps?
Oh yes, I just wanted to touch everything and all of that. So I felt like her statement of artistic merit, what she wants to do, was definitely unique. And I felt that her artistic identity shone through on that. I think she has a fairly clear sense of purpose. It definitely expressed her passion for experimentation across all these different mediums and her commitment to connecting art with the human experience. And I just thought, well, that's just, I thought she did a nice job with that. I think the mixed media sculptures of this artist are very interesting, but a little bit more background on those additional work samples. For me, the 2 Facebook links didn't work. And that would have been really helpful for me to gauge her stage of experience. And then what I felt like maybe was the most relevant example, it was a picture of a sculpture that she had done, or maybe similar to the one that she's planning in a larger scale or with more of these media elements. The picture wasn't that great. It looked like it was kind of like looking through a window, maybe the wrong side. And I just thought that's the crown jewel of this, to help me understand what this looks like a little bit more. But maybe that's just me, again, wanting to just touch and feel it a little bit more through that. But I felt like a better work product example might have been helpful. I think in terms of the quality of the proposal, I thought it demonstrated a strong and cohesive artistic vision. This idea of integrating personal healing and empowerment, and using the materials being brought together. If I'm getting this right, so if I'm not, then there's a lesson there. But this is how I saw it: bringing those different pieces of things together with this element of connection is the expression of this healing and bringing society together. This fusion of clay and magnetic iron, I just thought was just very fresh and visual. And it again, too, just kind of delving into what I think she's trying to do with this art form is just, it's a very emotionally resonant and distinctive kind of output, or I should say deliverable product. I think having, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, just have a little bit more details about audience engagement, community impact? How will people, how will actually people interact with this? Are they just going to come and look at it? How does this, and that's maybe just me on my learning curve of sculpture. I think her proposal really focuses more on what I call the logistical needs, the funding, the firing, the materials. And I just think maybe a little bit more of explaining the broader professional implications of what she's trying to do would be helpful. How will this enhance her visibility? How will it catapult the career trajectory? And maybe like you said, Tim, what if, a little bit more what if in there. So overall, I think it's a very interesting, creative, unique project designed to promote community unity, empowerment, and thought. And I think that ultimately the goal is to create positive change and healing is very admirable. So I appreciated reading it. So thank you for submitting it.
Thank you, Sharon. Let's open it up to the floor. Carol and Tim, your thoughts on application 20832. And thank you, Sharon.
I was drawn to the kinetic, magnetic part of this as a new area for the artist. I also could not open the Facebook links. I happened to have walked past downtown the sculpture that was in one of the pictures and had a better idea of it than the picture provided. And I agree, it wasn't a great picture. I was excited by the artist wanting to go in this new direction and learn these new materials and have the ability to do that basically on the community so that we can benefit from more kinetic sculpture in the area. So for me, it was a strong grant.
Thanks. Tim?
I have some questions.
Mm-hmm.
In the use of the Artist Opportunity Grant section, I wrote this proposal specifically to steer very clear of the $5,000 project budget mark. If for any reason my project does exceed my proposed budget, I will seek possible grant funding and pay whatever amount necessary personally. They're only asking for $1,916. And as I'm looking through the project, I'm not seeing costs for purchasing clay. I'm not seeing costs for the firing. I'm not seeing a lot of the costs that I would expect to see in a project of this size. So I'm not quite sure why the artist is steering clear of the $5,000 when the opportunity is up to $5,000. I think it's a great sounding project. It is an extension of what the artist has been working on with the previous sample they provided. But it goes back to I'm not sure how it's gonna be executed with the details they've given us. So I don't know if that's a budget clarification, if at this point in time they can go back and say, I actually want $4,000, or if that's too late in the application process. But from my understanding of what they're trying to do, them dipping into their personal finances to pull this off when there's still room in the budget for the grant to pay for it, use that money. That's what it's here for. So,
right.
But
I wondered, Tim, if they already had she already had some of this stuff, and that's why she didn't want to. I don't know. It wasn't clear. I would agree with you on that. It's like you left some money on the table.
yeah, which I appreciate them trying to make sure there's money available for other artists. But this is your chance to say, I want to pull this project off and I want help doing it. So
yeah.
Thank you for that, everybody.
Yeah, ask for more money.
Yeah, don't leave money on the table. That's the rule. That's the takeaway message for today, right?
I remember having this exact same conversation with an arts organization that applies for the special projects grant, who also does not, requested under $2,000 for a grant where you can get up to 10, you know. There's a part of me that admires it, and at the same time, that's the opportunity for you. Don't be shy about it. It's there.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
there.
it might just be an
Yeah.
experience thing, if
Yeah.
you're kind of going
Yeah.
into this, I can appreciate the mindset. It's like I'm being frugal. I have what I want to do. I've got some of maybe the materials already. I just need this part. I'm not gonna, take big portions from the buffet bar here. I'm just gonna take what I can eat and clean my plate, and there you go. And that's great. That's great. But in that thought process, as you're planning this out, Tim, what if I, did what would 3,000 more dollars or whatever look like?
Well, and here's what's interesting about what you all are saying is that I don't think that the size of the request, I think the size of the request may be tied to the fact that you're looking for more detail in other parts of the grant, right? Where perhaps what happened was the application is addressing perhaps, I mean, this is a guesstimation, right? Because we can't really know, but perhaps part of the issue is that the application is only discussing those aspects of the project that they're requesting funding for. And that actually still leaves you with a lot of questions. I don't know,
Right.
I'm guessing.
The other thing is, if this is a project that's been in her mind and swirling around for a while, she may have already accrued a bunch of stuff. And what she's asking for is what she can document is going to be spent during the project period.
If
Right.
I recall correctly, and I'd have to go through with my magnifying lens, but I thought that they mentioned in the narrative that they will be purchasing clay starting in January for this project because they're getting funds to buy the clay, but the clay was not listed as an item.
Right.
It
It
didn't
should
sound
still be on the budget form
Yeah.
because there's a column for other, yeah.
Because it did mention that
So,
they'll be purchasing clay for it, but that wasn't
right.
the narrative. That wasn't listed in the budget. And I do appreciate that they have targeted DSA as a venue, but that's also a curatorial decision made by DSA, and they do have a plan B and C for other venues. But do those venues charge? What are the costs associated with getting the work there? All that stuff. So again, it's a great project. It's a nice extension of what the artist is doing. I think that sitting down with them and looking at the bigger picture of how to pull it off would help them build a stronger budget.
All right. That is our time for applicant 20832. Let's move on to our next applicant, 20790. And Carol, you are our primary reviewer for this application. If you could get us started, please.
All right, this application is from a dancer who extols his experience in Dayton and wants to increase audience appreciation of enhanced skills. And what he states is to enhance dance skills by participation in a summer program in New England. The details of the learning experience are very well laid out in all aspects of dance, choreography, performance, and collaboration with other people in his line of work. The specific learning objectives are very well laid out. He does talk about audience impact that has to do with his enhanced skill levels based on this experience. He provided a description of this particular summer immersive program. All aspects of it, including performance at the end. The budget is well laid out. The largest portion of the budget is tuition for this particular experience. And that is something that may or may not be included in this type of grant. And as long as there's no certification at the end or certificate of achievement, which will have to be decided down the road. The grant itself is very strong. There are very clear goals. The budget is well laid out. The artist experience and how this will impact his career, all very well laid out. It's a good grant.
Thank you, Carol. Let's open it up to the floor, Sharon and Tim. Any further thoughts on this application 20790?
I thought this idea or goal to attend this Jacob's Pillow Contemporary Ballet program was admirable. It's stated immediately this is what this dancer would like to do. It aligns with the professional development goal that they have. The enthusiasm of the artist shown through in their narrative has a very strong sense of purpose. I'm excited to learn. I want to meet and share the space with like-minded individuals. I think that's great. And I just wanted, though, the proposal to go further in a greater stretch and public impact beyond just serving the Dayton community through the Dayton Ballet. You're going to be meeting all these people, and could there be, excuse me, what if there was a broader plan of sharing choreography with the Dayton Ballet, teaching workshops, coming up with something to magnify that experience further beyond the beautiful art form that the dancer is going to share as a part of the Dayton Ballet troupe. So that was one thing. The other thing I worried about, and not just like, maybe that's the wrong word, but I've gone to workshops myself many times in my life, and professional meetings, and you go there and you meet 1,000 people and you sit and listen to lots of papers. I mean, this is like in my world where I used to before I retired. And he says here that the program's immersive and collaborative structure will allow him to learn directly from leading choreographers and peers and deepen all that. But the program is very intensive, and it's very short term in the greater scope of things. So is it going to be a challenge? Maybe that's the right word. The challenge is going to be to fully explore and solidify, cement in these collaborations to continue the mentorship and the relationship beyond the residency period. That's one thing I'll just share for myself when I would come home from these professional meetings, and I think, oh my gosh, what were my takeaways? It's a little overwhelming. You're learning, but networking and really forming these lasting connections is work, and it takes time. And I just worry that there's not enough time to do that. So those were my two things: stretching a little bit further in contribution, and do you really got to plan on the time to do that?
Jim?
Agree with everything's been said. I would like to have seen some confirmation that the applicant has been applied or accepted into the program. I mean, they're saying this is the program they want to go to. Is there an application process? Have they been approved? At this point in time, we're looking at funding them to go to some project, program, or workshop they may not even be accepted into. So that was my concern. And as pointed out, it's clear how this would benefit this artist, but how to expand that and branch that out into what does that do for the community? It's a great opportunity for this artist to enhance their skills and network, but how does that benefit when they come home? How does that benefit Dayton or Montgomery County? And that part could have been stronger. But so confirmation that they're actually accepted into this program, and then what's in it for the community besides them.
Right. Just quick procedural note that whenever this is a little different from other applications in that it's not an actual project, right? It's a professionalization opportunity. So those are always contingent on their acceptance into the program, or if that program is for some reason canceled, which did happen to someone last year when NEA withdrew funding from their residency. So the whole thing was shut down. Then they're still able to use the funds to get into a similar residency. So that would always be a contingency with a project like that. And it also does kind of change their ability to address that question of community impact, right?
Yeah.
Because there's, but okay, did any other comments then on applicant 20790? Okay, good. Let's go ahead and move on then to our last application for this portion of the session, applicant 20817. And Tim, you're our primary reviewer for this applicant.
All right. 20817. Woven Fabric is a cultural fashion photography project that blends contemporary style with traditional Filipino heritage, culminating in a gallery exhibition, fashion showcase, and community celebration. A strong project. It's a nice evolution from where this artist is working. I love that it's very targeted and focused to a community and culture that needs additional or could benefit from additional and increased exposure. The concerns or things that popped up that would have made the application stronger for me is the path from social media to a multidisciplined exhibition curator isn't clear. So having a strong social media presence, photographing and representing that culture, how do they plan to move forward into creating an in-person experience and exhibition and immersive experience for a community culture and fashion? And then more detailed budget, venue and partner identification and communications. If they're planning on having this exhibition or experience, where are they targeted? When have they targeted their communication with venues? Where's the I'm having a party, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm missing the party aspect. Not saying it's a party, but I'm just saying it in air quotes that they're not. I know they're not having a party, but they're creating an immersive experience, and I would like more details on how they're planning on pulling that off, administratively, logistically, and financially.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Carol and Sharon. This is one that I should have noted earlier does have the contingency for the food in the budget. So that's already been addressed with this applicant and they're aware of that. So
all right, that was one of my comments.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a realistic, high impact project if you secure the right support system. You know, the funding, the partnerships, the time. There's no doubt that the cultural relevance of this, the sensory appeal, the focus on community make it a very strong and compelling project. I think for both local appreciation and also digital engagement. But I think two things, and you said one that need refinement, the budget, and then I just think, to me, finding the right venue and ensuring it can provide the necessary technical requirements is huge. It's critical for this, the lighting, the sound, the space. Now, October 2026 gives you a full year to get this done, but you got to start early and get this nailed down, because to me, that's your enabler. That's your key project enabler for this, for everything that you want to do. I agree with Tim. I just felt like there wasn't enough detail around, what would you call Tim, the party, or what that was.
And I don't want to diminish what they're trying to do by calling it a party. I'm doing air quotes in terms of I'm having experience that's going to be everything, a lot of things going on. So.
Well, I don't know. Party's like a great word. I love how it's celebrating this. To me, the culture is very celebratory and all of that, and it is a gala in a way with different aspects of bringing the community in and showcasing this. I think it was American Filipino type of attire and all of that. I love the idea. It's very unique. I think that's one thing I would say is I really appreciated the uniqueness of it. But man, there's a lot of moving parts, and you got to start early. But I really do think it's absolutely important you get the right venue, or it's not gonna pop like
And I think that's what was missing, was showing that there is a machine or mechanism in place to move from being social media photographer to putting on an event like this.
Yeah. It's a big leap. It's a stretch, but you better have it planned out or described.
Or have a team. Yeah.
Or have a team, right?
All of those things. I agree with all of that. I know that this is in conjunction with a cultural festival time period. Is it in any way attached to the formal things that are happening that month for this cultural experience? I mean, I would love it if it was even more. You mentioned fashion to me. I'm a costumer. I'm all for it. I liked what I saw, but the detailed vision and audience outcome, I thought were really good, but there's no venue. And the time period is loosely associated with the cultural events happening then, but didn't tie it directly in. There just were a lot of things that are being juggled that I don't see answers to. I still like the project.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's the tough part, is all these projects sound great and wonderful, but there's still that, from our experiences, execution is an important part of it. And
Devil's in the details.
and as we
Right.
said, even if failed execution is fine, but you have to prepare for failure.
Yeah, or a lot of the applications, I'll just share that things I've done in the past, or even professionally in my other career, has nothing to do with art. There was usually a place where you would have to articulate, what if something goes wrong? What are your contingencies? If this doesn't happen, here's plan B. And just so you thought about it. It's you may not know all the details, but just the fact that you got your suspenders on, but you're going to put a belt on too. Just make sure your pants don't fall down.
And I'm not targeting or no specifically on this one, but a lot of applicants left if the $5,000 isn't enough to complete my project, how am I going to do it? A lot of them left that blank, and I think that's an important part. Just like in the organizational grants, you have to be able to show. Even watching, shows on TV where you're remodeling your house, they're never done on budget. They're never done on time. So having understanding of, if this costs more than the money I've asked for, here's how I'm going to do it, shows a sense of understanding that things could go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all. So that was our final review for this group of applicants before our lunch break. We have 5 minutes here where we can kind of open this up and have a larger discussion. We've already had kind of larger discussions about the purpose of the panel and why the business and the administration and the financial and the timeline sections of an application are important, especially when you're applying for a grant that's funded publicly through public funds, your neighbors, and the panel's dual purpose in that sense of um, giving artists permission to grow in this way or access to grow in this way professionally and creatively at the same time that they're having to ensure that the funds are used toward projects that will be successful in some way. And we've also had the conversation, I think, just about that term measurable outcomes. Are there other tendencies at this point or larger notes in the applications that you'd like to address? And potentially, can we include strengths as well as areas for improvement in that? And what are some of the strengths that could be thought of as models where you see the skills that the person has and the ability to describe something and think concretely and transfer that skill into this other subject area or something like that?
So
That
one
was a
thing,
very leading question. I'm sorry. That was a very leading question.
so one thing, a lot of them put in there that they are storytellers. And I love that and appreciate that people are understanding as artists, they're storytellers, but all artists are storytellers and they all are creating community. So putting that as your key purpose of why you're doing this doesn't make you stand out any. But to identify that and then go into details explaining how you tell stories, how the story, how you develop story, how you develop community, that shows me they know what they're doing. But to say you're storytellers and you're building community, that's what we're all doing. So it doesn't help you stand out any. But I do appreciate that artists are understanding those are key words to use at this point in time.
Right. And I'll build on that. The operative word is, how do you tell the story to give you the insight into your unique identity as an artist and how your art form is, it's like there's this like mosaic of art and they're all doing what you just said, but everybody is like a snowflake and they have their unique approach. And I want to hear more about that. How do you see yourself as being unique and contributing, then not replicating necessarily, but contributing a new facet? You're a new snowflake in this blizzard of art. So tell me how that works. And I love, for me, art is emotional. You want to, what was the best advice I ever got is, don't be excited, be exciting. So how do you translate, from the passion that you feel to outward focus towards your audience and help them be excited, and so that you don't lose yourself in the emotional passion that you must be feeling as you create something. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, well, it goes back to art should be transformative, not transactional. If that, I mean, yes, there's transaction within art, but as a performer or public speaker or anyone or a visual artist, you are hoping that your work will transform at least one person. And like you said, a lot of these are coming in saying, I am this, and this is a story I want to tell, and that helps solidify their application. But just to generically say, I build community and tell stories without identifying who they are and their avatars or their target audience doesn't help us understand what they're trying to do.
Carol,
I
you
think-
must have thoughts about this as a theater person.
I think by and large, the applicants have done a pretty good job of stating what their goals are. And sometimes the applications break down into how that translates into audience impact or the details that need to happen in order to meet that goal. I think by and large, they know what they want to do and they can tell you what they want to do. It's the pieces that get them there. And the outcome past the initial project that has been lacking somewhat. But overall, I was really impressed with how everybody can state what they want to do. That's the first most important part.
Okay. Thanks to all of you for that. I'm even thinking, Tim, about your use, or was it Sharon? One of you used the word transformational rather than transactional. Tim?
Yep.
Yeah. And I do think that like the more businessy aspects of a grant application, such as the timeline and the budget, can very easily feel transactional, and that may be part of the challenge with writing them, so maybe that can be a question that we can contemplate and pursue when we come back after our lunch break, and discuss the last group of applications.
Because there's transaction involved in creating your work.
Right.
And even selling tickets is a transaction, but them witnessing the art is where the transformation can happen. And that's a really, as a grant writer and grant reviewer, that's a really weird place
you have to be able to do both. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break, everyone. Thank you so much. It is 12:20 and we are on a lunch break until 1:15 p.m. Panelists, please do not leave the room. Just turn your mic off and your camera off, but be here so that you hear me call. And all applicants and all members of the public, all members of Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District, who are in the room with us today, thank you for being here. And we will see you again at 1:15. Enjoy your break, everybody. See you soon.
One of our neighbors goes out and blows the leaves off of the road so they don't blow into his yard. as if that does any good, but.
Wow. We're just not evolved, Tim. That's all
I know.
there is to it. We're not evolved.
We don't understand leaves, apparently.
Welcome back, everybody, and happy fall. This is the 2025-2026 Artist Opportunity Grant Team B public panel review. We have 6 more applications to review today. Our next application is application 20804. And Carol, you're our primary reviewer. You're muted right now. So let's not lose your words of wisdom. Let's see here.
Oh, you're on mute, Carol. There you go.
There we go.
Okay. I do not have a full screen, so I had to wait for you to invite me.
I got you. Okay. Well, let's
You're
begin.
in a little corner.
Let's begin with application 20804. And Carol, if you can get us started on this review.
All right, so this is 20804. The project is a multimedia presentation interpretation of the artist's poem, The Sonnets of a Bipolar Bitch. The goal is clearly described. I have questions about whether enough time is allotted for video editing. To me, it doesn't seem like it, but I guess that's not my problem so much. Um, the project is aimed at increasing audience awareness of mental health issues. There were videos presented of the artist performing her poem in various places. Information about budget information about the cost of each component was included. Overall, the artist is really passionate about this project, and the project appears strong.
Thank you, Carol. Let's open this up for a wide-ranging conversation about areas of strength, areas for improvement. Sharon and Tim, could you please come in and flesh out the conversation?
So I agree with Carol. I think that very well articulated, but I do think a challenge lies in transitioning from poetry to film. It's a whole new creative, logistical, or it's a new creative form and has new logistical challenges. I think the collaborative and technical aspects that would be involved with production, so directing, budgeting, coordinating, could stretch current skill sets and resources, but I guess that's all what professional growth is about. But I hope that that's been considered. I do think that the whole premise of this is very powerful in how it's reframing, framing thoughts around bipolar disorders by taking poetry as the tool and then creating that into a cinematic experience that's going to help create this resilience and healing and understanding about it. The Neon Theater is great. I think that provides really valuable visibility, but I think that it's only going to be good if people know about it. And so I think the project's impact may be constrained if there isn't really a clear distribution or outreach plan beyond those screenings, and even getting people to come to those screenings. So I think that that's a consideration that really needs to be taken seriously. So overall, very strong proposal. I think it shows growth and continuity in that growth trajectory of this artist. And I think it's a very compelling concept that takes her to the next level.
Thanks, Sharon. Tim?
A lot of the same concerns. Going from script development to final print in 9 months is a very aggressive schedule. If you have done this type of project, and I don't get the sense that this artist has gone through that level of development from recording them sitting doing a narrative or a performance, as opposed to what I'm envisioning is a much larger film, as they mentioned, cinematic experience. That's a huge step up from where their work samples showed them. And their comment of my artistic practice is rooted in storytelling, a discipline that allows me to move fluidly between written word, spoken language, and moving images. That's a great statement, but I'm not seeing that defined or executed. I mean, it's great to think that you can do that, but I'm not seeing that a plan to how to do that. They do mention they're doing storyboards. Storyboarding, I mean, a major movie takes multiple years, and a lot of that time is spent in storyboarding and fleshing out the whole story. I'm just concerned that, one, the schedule is very aggressive, and the skill set doesn't show to be able to pull this off without a team, and there's no list of a mentor. And I think the budget, again, to go from the whole development cycle and production and marketing with this budget, I think they're underestimating. From my experience, there might be underestimating what is involved with the scale of this project.
Okay. Carol, does that sync up? And again, I'm just asking because I like to make sure. I like to circles. I like circles.
It does. I was taking into consideration that a full-length motion picture takes 2 years post-production to get to a movie theater for editing video. I wasn't including the storyboarding and all of that, so I do have concerns about the ability to complete this project in the time allotted.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your review of applicant 20804. Let's move forward to our next applicant, 20798. A little ahead of schedule here. Sharon, you are our primary reviewer here. So can you start us off?
Yes, so this is 20798. The opportunity is to write solo concert piano arrangements of pop music, written or popularized by women, practice the newly composed work, and then perform it in K through 12 schools across the Midwest. So from an artistic merit standpoint, I just felt this was a very strong proposal. This artist's rigorous classical training, and diverse repertoire, and the fact that she possesses this powerful emotional connection to the art of performance, I think all those mixed together are going to be the secret sauce for her to move the minds and hearts of K through 12 students. I think that it's a very admirable undertaking. And so I think the idea here to creatively reimagine pop music is, like I said, highly imaginative. It's very interesting, and it's merging together all of these skills that she has, I think, really in kind of a fresh new way that can resonate with younger minds. And I like that. One of the things we've seen, I think, in some of the other proposals, I always feel like there's this law of diminishing returns as we get older in a way. And I think that things that can change hearts and minds of younger folks, especially when getting them into the arts, is a really great investment. It's sometimes the time to really to make that move and try to integrate these new horizons for them as they're younger. I do think that while her experience and mentorship from Dr. Rush will help her through some of the new skills and demands of the project, I think there's just as before, is there enough time for built into this, baked into this project for creative decision making or technical execution, particularly under a tight timeline leading up to a fall recital tour? Even though she's got the steps really outlined well, but that's just something I throw out for consideration. I think too, we've talked about this, the challenge in public benefit work is sustainability. Free performances and outreach and educational efforts, depend a lot on your personal time, support from institutions like this one, grant funding. I always want to see these things kind of live on beyond the moment, and without that constant and consistent financial backing or infrastructure, even great projects like this could really struggle, and that would be a shame. So I just hope that there's a lot of personal dedication that needs to go into this, along with the systemic support, and I think she's got all those ingredients here, but it's definitely an undertaking. So overall, I think it's an exciting project. I think it holds a high degree of feasibility, and I think the benefits are both immediate and long-term if they're properly positioned and supported.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. And let's go ahead and open it up for further discussion. Tim and Carol, could you please flesh out Sharon's primary review?
Sharon pretty well covered it, and I was wondering, listening to her, if investigation into future in-school performances through Muse Machine would be an appropriate way to to take this forward. I like the proposal. It was specific. It's a big bite to chew, but it's doable. And I liked it. So
Okay. Tim?
Again, agree with what all we've been talking about. I do like the very specific schedule shows that they have thought this through about the steps that are involved and how long each step should take. I don't know if the amount of time allocated for each step is appropriate, having not done this type of art. So I don't know if they're realistic, but given this person's background, I think they are realistic. I will again bring up the not addressing copyright or permission topics, issues, or costs. If you are taking popular music from other performers, and you're performing it, again, I've dallied into it a little bit, but I don't know the specifics of a public performance of that type of music. I do appreciate that they have connections already within K through 12 schools that they can tap into for the performance. It'd be nice to have a more detailed list of how that's going to move forward. And if those teachers are even, I'm sure they are, but just communication saying, hey, I'm doing this program. Would you be interested in having me come to your school? Having that type of communication in the application shows that they've thought about that stage of the project.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Um, Carol and Sharon, both of you are in the performing arts, Sharon in music, Carol in theater. I mean, do you two want to address the copyright question a little bit? Because it's come up a couple times, just about how that works so that we can have that information in our brains moving forward, at least for this discussion, this panel.
if this is for educational purposes only, copyright is waived. If it is for public performance other than educational, you need to have permission from the publishing company and have paid for rights for doing that.
Yep.
Right.
That's exactly correct. So as long as she stays in the realm of education, she's good.
Yeah. So what I appreciate about this moment is this is the kind of insider knowledge that is so easy to take for granted based on your genre and your art form. And it leaves people outside of your art form with a question that if you're inside the art form, you don't hear.
Because I was
Because you have the answer.
I was involved in a project that was
Yeah.
educational nature, and we wanted to have background music, and we were told by a lawyer that we needed to pay BMI, I think BMI, for the rights to use that music, even though it was in a educational forum. We were charging admission to attend this forum, and therefore it wasn't considered educational. So I know there's all these. I mean, copyright is just this weird, nebulous mess of confusion anyway. So, but I keep bringing that up just because I bumped into it myself in other projects I've worked on, and I just want to make sure that these artists aren't going to get themselves into trouble, where they could get the $500,000 fine or a cease and desist from somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Was somebody else speaking? Did I just interrupt somebody? No? Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on then. Still a little ahead of schedule, I believe, but let me check and make sure. Yes, this applicant is in the room. So we'll go ahead and we will move forward to the next application. Applicant 20833. And Tim, you are the primary reviewer for this one. This application did have food mentioned in the budget narrative, but not in the form. So there is already a noted contingency on this one, based on just clarifying the budget with the food item. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And Tim, if you can get us started on the discussion, please. Thank you.
Sure. This is 20833. I plan to travel to Los Angeles and New York City to enhance my music and media art skills through hands-on experience and networking opportunities. My goal is to develop and document the full creative process of producing my new album from concept to completion. After the trip, I will return to Dayton, Ohio to present a live showcase that highlights everything I've learned and created during the experience. Um, Again, another strong proposal. I love that this person is looking to produce and create a new album and new work and bring that back to Dayton and not only provide that work as something for us to experience, but also to document and educate people on the process they went through to make it happen. That's a very strong offer and give to back to the community. I was thrown off a little bit because at first they were talking about I want to make sure I'm in the right one here. Having a I want to make sure I'm in the right application and not misquote the wrong one. Oh yeah, they've made a mobile studio to take it out in the community so people who can't afford the studio can record. That's where we started, but then we end up in the narrative of them traveling to New York and Los Angeles for their album. And I was looking more for a connection back to bringing that back to the community and serving the people that can't afford the high studio production costs to produce their work. I was kind of concerned with the schedule of traveling to LA and New York for 10 days. And it's from what I can tell from reading it, hoping to run into people that will help them with their vision. Going to LA and hoping to bump into people that will help you learn how to do film without without people you already have targeted and in communication with seems a big leap of faith. And the same thing with going to New York and hoping to run into people that will help you record. And then looking through the budget, airfare and the travel expenses seemed fair, but I had questions on the studio costs that they put in their budget without any supporting material as to where those numbers came from. So again, I like the project. I like that it has that thought of bringing it back to the community and showing them not only my product, but how I developed the product or the album, but some of the logistics of making the thing actually happen. I needed some more details to make it a more strong case.
Thank you, Tim. Let's go ahead and open the discussion of 20833, open to the floor. Carol and Sharon, can you take some time here to flesh out what Tim has said here as primary, considering strengths, areas for improvement in the application, or any questions that you still have where you're missing some details?
I thought the idea was great. I actually thought that the LA trip was better planned than the New York trip. The New York trip seemed aspirational. I'd like to meet these people. I'd like to work with these people. The LA trip seemed to have better connections and was better planned. I'd like to go to LA and New York. Does Culturework want to fund me for doing that? I have aspirational plans.
Yeah, I mean those are the places to go to for what they're trying to do. So
Yeah, I thought that I agree with everything you both have said. I think the proposal is it has merit in the fact that this artist has the desire to hone his self-taught performance and digital media skills, and then also to help share that more broadly with others with this mobile studio idea. I think it's ambitious. I would have definitely need to see more planning. I thought it was a little bit, hey, I'm going to travel these places and, just immerse myself in whatever I can and then reflect upon it and then come back. What I would have liked to seen a little bit more of maybe is narrow that scope, maybe go to LA or go to New York and have these workshops or these intersections with artistic outcomes, fully baked in. I'm going to be seeing this studio and this expert, and I'm going to learn this thing. I think that start a little bit small, maybe focus on the one thing that is your biggest opportunity area right now, and go find experts in that area. It just felt a little bit of shotgun to me. Now, from the standpoint of the airfare to get to these places, yeah, I mean, I think that was well justified. It wasn't, crazy, but I just like, when you get there and you're hoping that you're going to intersect with the right people and then you're going to come back, is that really the best way to do this from a professional development standpoint? It might work, but it might not. I mean, I've been to New York. I've been to both places, and for other reasons within arts community, and people are on a schedule there, so like to see a little bit more pre-planning.
Yeah. Carol, can you say a little bit more about why you felt the LA trip was a little more planned out than the New York trip? One of my questions for you, and this is not to answer now, this is for the next meeting, but one of my questions is, this could be a contingency example where you as the panel come together and say, we're comfortable funding one, but not the other, kind of a thing. And so Carol, could you speak a little bit more about LA versus New York?
The New York trip sounded like he hoped, or this person hoped to collaborate with, and then there was a list of people, but there was no immediate contact. The wording anyway for the LA trip sounded like there was at least one point of contact that would help him get started. I don't have it in front of me right now, so I can't give you more specifics than that, but it seemed to me that there were specific people or a person that had already been contacted that looked like was more promising than the vague aspirational statements made about New York.
Okay. Part of the reason I'm asking these questions is because this year, at least to my knowledge, is one of the first times where we received applications for professionalization opportunities where they were self-created in this way rather than a residency or a workshop or something like that. And so it was something that during the eligibility review, I had some discussions with Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District about, because for me, that's really exciting when somebody takes ownership of creating their own professionalization opportunity, but also because this is really, I think, one of the first times, and this was not the only one like this, by the way, there were a few others too. And I just hadn't seen that before. So part of what I'm trying to think through too is just how to help these people write an application where they can get funding for something that is a professionalization opportunity, but that they're having to build on their own. So thank you for your comments. From my perspective as well, they've been helpful. Is there anything else you want to say about application 20833? I don't want to cut it short. Just with my own kind of comments there. We're comfortable with that one? Okay. Let me check our time here. We're actually 4 minutes ahead of schedule. And the applicant is in the room. So we will go ahead and move into the review of application 20806. And Sharon, you're the primary reviewer for this application. Could you please start us off? Thank you.
Certainly. All right, this is application 20806. The opportunity to travel to the recording studios of Green Tea Distribution in Santa Monica, California, where I will attend a 4-day artistic development residency and develop my skills of songwriting, vocal performance, and music distribution strategy. So I think in terms of the artistic merit, based on the description provided and the examples, the artist definitely appears to be highly experienced, deeply rooted in her musical craft, strong background that spans a lot of different art forms, music, dance, writing, performance, and something that's been part of her DNA, it sounds like, from a very young age. So, and she's had experience with performance and producing and all of that. And so I think this is a natural progression for her to, get to that next level and hone her skill even further. The only thing, and I'd be really interested to see what Carol and Tim have to say. I went online to the Green Tea Distribution. I know she had a letter of invitation, but when I look at their website, I don't see that they don't have a program listed as something they offer. In fact, they have a link, you go to it and there's nothing there. So I'm just wondering, is this a new program? So they just haven't gotten their website up to date, but I guess the question is assuming that it is, then how did she decide this was the place to go? I've got to believe there's a lot of other workshops of this nature. I think that where it's situated, it sounds like, New York, LA, those are the hotbeds, the meccas, if you will, to go and learn these things. But why? I mean, I'd like to see that there was a little bit of a discernment process. I chose this one because, and then I've just, when I didn't see that there was actually a formalized program that they were, especially if it's like signaling, hey, it's brand new and you might be one of our first students, I might say, hey, you might want to go look at some other place where people have done this and, maybe get a little bit bigger bang for the buck here. I think other than that, her impact on her career is very clear. She had very tangible examples. I think that she clearly demonstrates a high level of community engagement and educational impact, and how she wants to take her previous experiences and bring those forward. I think, again, just having a few more examples of how she'll measure that success, assuming that this workshop, leads to a greater degree of skill in any of these areas. And then how she's just going to manage all of this. It's like we've got here a 4-day artistic development residency, and there's a lot of things that she wants to get done in that 4 days and bring back into a more full-blown, professional capability. So I just that's how I saw it. I think it's very strong, but I just would want her to get the best possible training that she could get in residency. And that's my big question mark, is why this organization?
Thanks, Sharon, for getting us started. Let's go ahead and open it up to Tim and Carol, and maybe if you had some of the same concerns as Sharon, address those, or if you have other strengths or areas for improvement you're seeing, open that up as well into the discussion.
I thought it was well written. She presented a good timeline, was clear about what she wants to do. My concern was the same thing. These people approached her. Was there any investigation into other programs, and why did this one rise to the top? It just felt like they approached her and this is the only one. I'm always skeptical of people who approach me. I want to do more homework about the place and, and what exactly they have to offer for my personal gain. That was my big concern. The rest of the grant was really well written, and the timelines were good, the budgets were good, everything looked good, but I have that question.
Thanks, Carol. Tim,
Yep.
you too. Okay.
Yeah, because I too went to the website because it sounded like a great opportunity. And as Carol pointed out, I'm always skeptical as well when somebody approaches me with an opportunity. So I went to do a lot of research. So I went to this website, didn't see a residency program, and therefore there's no curriculum or syllabus for the workshop or for the residency. And if it's a self-developed one, which is great, that this artist said, I want to go and take advantage of this opportunity, then create that syllabus for your experience and share that with us. If you want to go and learn, as you pointed out, that's 4 days to do songwriting, performance, and music distribution strategy. That's a lot to tackle in 4 days, and includes in those 4 days paid extra time in the studio for recording. What are the specific targets that they hope to achieve during their residency in their 4 days? So again, if it's something that Green Tea Distribution approached them with, then I would expect Green Tea to provide a syllabus. If this is an opportunity the artists created themselves, which is fine, then some specific targets of what they hope to achieve in 4 days. And is that place the right place for developing those skills? As pointed out, what is unique about this place? Why did Green Tea become the target for this project? So, but again, all the details are great. I mean, they researched costs down to the details necessary. It's just more of the logistics of why, not how.
I mean, in a nutshell, I think that the project is definitely feasible, but the outcomes are absolutely dependent on the quality of the professional development provider, which to me is the big question mark. And I would also say, like we've said this on some other applications that we've reviewed, is maybe pick one of these aspects. Find the one that maybe is your strength and you want to really take it to the next level, or one where you need to shore up a skill level, and pick that for 4 days. Boy, that time can fly. And maybe just narrow the scope a little bit and pick the one too that this organization is rock solid on. They're considered the gold standard. So, but that wasn't clear. So that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that feedback. We're still ahead of schedule significantly at this point. But the next applicant is in the room, so we are going to move forward with applicant 20831. And Carol, you're the primary reviewer for this one. And I'm going to let you just get us started on this discussion.
This is a well-known muralist around town. She is interested in expanding her horizons with the creation of an interactive mural that includes a new medium that is conductive and produces sound and light when touched. That made me want to get in there and play with that stuff. The description of the project and the description of the audience interaction was wonderful. The well planned out potential audiences were also a strength here. Turning pages. The outcome of the project includes an interactive piece for specified audiences like Children's Medical Center. Can't remember the other ones off the top of my head, but they were well thought out and appropriate to the project that is being presented to us. the artist's support materials demonstrated potential for achieving the project. Um, and it was all well documented. The details for use of funds provided information for all aspects of the project, except for once you have this piece, how does it get from place to place? Or is it a stationary project that stays one place, but with multiple, but you had or the person had named multiple different types of audiences that this would be appropriate for. So overall, it was a strong presentation and has good potential for successful completion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carol. Let's go ahead and open it up to Sharon and Tim and flesh out the primary review, if you would.
Well, as you can imagine, the scientist in me just went wild at this point. I mean, my first thing was like, "Oh my God, it's a sorcery! You guys should have the ball contact you." And it just like immediately drew me in. And obviously, this muralist is just so talented. Over 200 murals established, and all of this is obviously this is her sweet spot, and no argument in her ability to create a mural. I think, you know, the big thing here is you've got this paint that's so interesting, and she's talking about doing some sampling or experimentation on wood. So is that the final form of this artistic piece? When I think of a mural, I think it being like on the, I guess it could be anywhere, but you know, I think around town on, you know, walls, and are the walls, I just think there's a question, and maybe that's where the experimentation comes in, is it, what's it going to be on, and, you know, will it work? And if it works in this media on wood and you're going to put it over on a concrete wall or something, is it still going to work? So that was the big thing. I want it to work. I was like, I'm on the sideline there. You go, girl. I mean, this is great. One of the things, though, I think the drawback to this approach is now we're talking about something that's going to be interactive, and it's for the community. And it's going to depend, this interaction with it is going to depend on everybody in the community, multiple people, physical participation, touching, you know, making sound. And some audience members may not, with those like with mobility issues or sensory issues or so, you know, social limitations, might not be able or comfortable engaging with it. So I'm kind of interested as who is this audience? At first I thought, oh, it might be better for kids and older people, you know, because but I just think, and I think additionally, outdoor conditions, Carol, to your point, where's it going to be? If it's crowded around there, are there sound restrictions? You know, all of those things would impact it. So love the idea. I just would like to know a little bit more about that. And has that been something that's been thought through?
Tim?
Well, I will say, having worked with this technology, we did an exhibition space for disabled audience members, and it's great. It's wonderful. Anyone can access it and use it.
Cool.
This is something the artist has been interested in for a few years. This is well within their wheelhouse of doing murals and taking murals to a new level, beyond just here's some artwork on the wall. Is fascinating and interesting. My attention was on that they're going to do it as part of Art in the City, which is great, but Art in the City is only one weekend, and I would hate for something like this to only exist for 2 days.
Yeah.
So either making it portable so it's accessible and can be moved around the community, or in some place where it can reside for people to access it past Art in the City. And the material, as you can see in the budget, is not cheap. And it does take an awareness of electronics to know how to complete the circuit, which I don't think artists will have any problems with, because once you start experimenting, you figure out what does or doesn't work. So yeah, it's an exciting evolution of murals and public art. It makes it interactive. But I would like more information about how it's going to be in the community bigger and longer than Art in the City.
Thank you.
I think that some of that was addressed in potential audiences.
Mhm.
I don't know if it obviously didn't meet Tim's criteria, but it was mentioned.
Right, but like I said, I kept coming back to Art in the City, and it's like this is so much bigger than Art in the City, and it seemed like an emphasis on the application was that opportunity. So I wanted the opportunity to be bigger and more.
Any other thoughts on application 20831? Awesome. Okay. We are about 7 minutes ahead of schedule, and we're looking just at one last application. That applicant is not in the room, however, so I'm going to ask us to just take, let's come back right on time. Let's take a little break here, you all, and come back at 2:05. So, hey, Tim, thanks for
Hi.
coming. Welcome back, everybody. We've made it to our final review for application 20801 on this day of Halloween in 2025 for the 2025-2026 Team B Public Panel Review of the Artist Opportunity Grant. Thank you. And Tim, can you celebrate this momentous moment by beginning our primary review of applicant 20801?
All right, 20801. To explore America's wine regions and spotlight the stories of BIPOC professionals in the industry, demystifying wine, increasing access, and creating momentum for future events that uplift local wineries and their communities. Another strong and very interesting project. I always feel bad on these because it sounds like we're picking them apart, but it's like the competition shows on TV where you're finding the little things because it's a good idea. What a interesting topic to approach and a much needed way to expand awareness of the wine opportunities within other communities besides the typical stereotype where you see wine being done. I did have some questions that would have helped make the application stronger. Um, the trip to Boston to meet with a mentor sounds interesting, but I don't know why it has to be done in person as opposed to ongoing communications. And I was a little confused. It seemed like a multi-day trip, but only one night of hotel was in the budget. So I was kind of confused as to the logistics of the Boston trip. The Washington, D.C. event, looking at the website, their dates and prices for 2026 don't seem to be identified yet. And maybe the applicant has insider information from talking to the organizers, but the schedule does list prices and dates, which I could not find on the event website, which gave me some questions as to where did the dates and prices come from. And the general goal of going to the festival to network and meet with BIPOC members of the wine community is wonderful, but I was looking for more specifics as to who has been there in the past and what information could you gain from meeting these people and how can you have access to these events, because typically in festivals that I've been to, the celebrities or the folks who are the headliners aren't mingling around on the floor for you to just walk up to and chat with. I could be wrong on that, but a plan forward of specific people or types of people looking to meet, network, and interview would have made it a stronger application to me in terms of a full understanding of what they're getting into and what information they're going to try to present.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tim. Let's go ahead and open the discussion up. Carol and Sharon, can you kind of flesh that out with other strengths or areas for improvement, questions you had or answers you found maybe to some of Tim's concerns?
Well, I agree with. Oh, go ahead, Carol. No, just start yakking. So you go ahead. Stop me now while you can. So no.
You provide so much more information than I do. I like the idea of it. I like the idea of a completed project that shows all this stuff, a learning, an educational experience. My question was, some of my questions were time frame, and do you have the ability to narrow this down to a workable project? Are you doing all of this, every piece of information in this community? That's a lot of information. How do you edit it? Or do you have specific goals that you want to address that would make it a more manageable program? Other than that, I like it.
Anyone that knows me, say the word wine, I'm there. I'm in. I'm with you guys. I think the one consideration is scope and focus could be too broad for one project. It covers multiple professionals, industries, themes, wine, culture, identity, community, and it may overall dilute the whole storytelling process and become too diffuse. So I think, as you said, Carol, like, could we maybe narrow it down, focus on one region, one profession, or a theme, and strengthen the cohesion of this narrative? I also think that this project's success is dependent on partnerships and event participation to reach its full potential. If there's any sort of logistical or funding limitations, the scope of that engagement could narrow. That would then, jeopardize the full potential of the project. You've got scheduling. Tim, you pointed this out, scheduling and travel logistics. There seems to be some question mark there, and this project depends on that. So that's got to be golden, I think, to be fully successful. But overall, I think this project has clear social and cultural purpose. I love it. I think spotlighting the BIPOC professionals in wine is an underrepresented area of storytelling, and so I think from that it has great merit, and I think it also directly aligns with this artist's development as a storyteller. And we said this before, it's like, so what is that unique voice, and how does the story rise above all stories? And I think this one has got a great foundation for that, given the topic is very unique and fresh, and how this particular artist might go after that to develop it further. So I like that aspect a lot.
And one follow-on note, I forgot, it's in my notes, but I forgot to bring it up. There's only the one quick mention of when the project's complete, coming back and working with local wineries and communities. I would like to have some more information about who those are, and who have they identified within the region that does wineries and the communities where, what are some wine shops or places that to show that, once the project's done, you have a place to take it. And that was a little weak on from my perspective of the, once it's done, what do you do with it?
Okay. Any other thoughts for this final applicant 20801? Okay. We have now just about 5 minutes then before I'll wrap up the session, just with some general announcements. Can we open this up at this point, now that we've been through all of the applications, to talk about some of the key strengths that you saw overall, or key issues that you would like to see applicants be aware of in the future? Just overarching kind of themes, anything you want to highlight for our applicants before we move out of this phase of our meeting today.
I do want to thank all the folks that took the time to provide an application. It's scary to put yourself out there and talk about your dreams and, and what you'd like to do, and have people, judge you. That's kind of what's going on here, kind of assessing and discerning, and I applaud them. I am so proud of Dayton. What a community with so many artists that have such incredible talent. It's kind of like going to a church and you find out all these people can cook. And I was like, wow, wow. I mean, we have really got some serious talent in this community, and which makes it's a good problem to have. But I just really want to thank all the artists for putting themselves out there. And I hope that regardless of outcomes, if some don't move to the funding level, that doesn't deter them from continuing to try. I've been there myself, and you just gotta learn from it. And hopefully we've provided some good feedback that has been viewed as well-intentioning and helpful, not to, it's like, hey, you did this, you didn't do this kind of thing at all. That's not at all where we came from. So
I enjoyed reading all of these. They are unique and different, and for the most part doable. They may need some finesse, but I didn't see any project in here that wasn't a worthwhile project or a doable project. And I would hope that whether you get this money or not, that you come back on another time with this project or another project, because it was kind of awesome to read these and see what everybody's doing or wants to do.
yep.
Yeah, I don't know. They were all so strongly written that either the prompts in the application are strong, or Ren and her team in the background coaching people and helping them. Because to each and every one of them had a unique vision and clear thought what they're doing and why. So again, Ren, I don't know if this goes to what it goes to, whether they are being coached or whatever, but it made our jobs easy and hard at the same time. Because
It
they
is
all had a
hard.
clear vision and evolution through the story. I didn't feel like there's a lot of copy and pasting going on. They actually went through the questions and answered the questions, which I guess is also a good point, since most of them are first-time applicants. They don't have a library of copy and paste stuff. So this probably had to be a lot of soul searching and working on their part to come up with why they're doing this.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you actually said that, because that's, I mean, I still grant write like freelance on the side for small nonprofits, but I'm no longer like a director of grant writing, though I was once upon a time. And I I really love my experience as a grant maker. And most of that has to do with the Artist Opportunity Grant. It's really my favorite, I think, of all of them, because it's the one that focuses in on the individual artist and gives them their voice to build what they want. And so it feels much more dream oriented than maybe some of the others that are organizational grants. And there is a tendency, especially if you're a larger organization with a fleshed out, development team or a grant writer to do that copy and pasting. And, with AI now too, being so involved in grant writing, that this is the grant that I enjoy the most because the people who are invested in it really are writing these grants a lot of times for their first time or their second time, and really like throwing out the fishing rod and hoping somebody pulls it. And there's a real risk in that. And it also means that sometimes the applications we get are a little messier, um, you know, and the finessing of the passion and balancing that with kind of the more business transactional aspects and learning how to balance you and your dual purpose as their primary audience, right? The passion of the projects themselves, every single one of you just responded to that. And even with all of that, this is still a competitive grant. There are simply not enough funds for every applicant to receive the funding, right? And so I think the one message that I would say is to reiterate what each of you have already said, which is please don't take the results of this application process as an indication of the value of your project, because it is not. It is simply a difficult decision-making process. And to put yourself out there the way you do gives those of us who have the good fortune of reading all of the applications an immense gratitude, I think, at the end of the process, because it builds your awareness of the wealth of creativity and artistry that we have in our region. And that is just very affirming, especially if you're a person like all of us who are invested in the arts, right? To still realize that there are things that are happening that you had no idea were happening is really gratifying experience.
And I
So,
want to point out quickly, not to make your job harder, but I'm always encouraging artists, specifically visual artists, because again, I don't know performance that well, is to realize that grants are a great way to make income and support your work besides hustling on the streets and in the galleries.
yeah.
And having this opportunity where the community is offering you up to $5,000 to help you advance your art, I think every artist in Dayton should be applying for this grant.
Yes, and that not only makes my job harder, it makes your job harder, because that means you have to make even harder decisions down the road.
Or you just get more money.
Well, let's not go down that route. That's a whole other conversation for another day. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our session here with some closing comments. Panelists, if you'll still remain in the room so that we can go over next steps together. Some reminders for the public who are still here. For the first time, Artist Opportunity Grant panelists are going to have time to consider their fellow panelists' comments during today's public panel and to review their own feedback and their scoring in the rubric in a new light. Panelists may choose to update their comments and reassess their scores based on the panel's public discussion points before they meet again on Wednesday, November 5th, to decide on this team's panel funding recommendations. November 5th is a Wednesday. So applicants, you will receive notification of the status of your application by email by the end of Friday, November 7th. Please remember that the panel's recommendations must be approved by MCACD before scheduling the required onboarding session with me to review your contingency plan, if there is one, to update all the budget forms, to fill out a project revision form, and to sign your grant agreement and discuss your next steps. Optional Zoom feedback review sessions with me are available for all applicants, even if you do not receive an award this cycle. Please take us up on this offer at CultureWorks. We want to support you as you prepare for your next steps, whether you're applying for this grant again in a year, or you found some other grant that you are eligible for, you think that you would like support in the application process for. We are always here for that and welcome your call. All applicants will receive a copy and paste of the written feedback that today's panelists have completed inside the application portal on a rubric. I copy and paste that written feedback into a written feedback form, and you will receive that after November 7th, all right? But you will receive that feedback. It is sent to you anonymously, all right? We do want to protect the identity of our panelists here. You know them as you know them, but we're not going to identify who wrote what. But it will give you a larger sense, perhaps, of this discussion, perhaps amplify some of the points, and you may even see some of the points of disagreement and kind of have a sense of how that leveled out today during today's discussion. So I want to thank everybody for their attendance. I want to thank Montgomery County for their generous support of the arts, Montgomery County Arts and Cultural District for their support this morning in the introductions, but also for continuing to work with CultureWorks as we move through what we are always trying to improve upon, an invitational and supportive and transparent grant application process. I want to thank everybody for your attendance. And at this time, anybody who is not on the panel, we ask you to please leave the session so that we can have a private conversation about our next steps.